time feeling it take on more of form. There, that wasn't so bad, was it? Lana said. I felt strangely detached, as though I were in two places at the same time, and I told her so. You'll get used to it, she assured me. In fact, you'll get to enjoy it. I do. Especially when I've made several prints. Why are you doing this? I asked. Who are you? What are you? I'm a photographer, Lana said. I'm connected with the Natural History Museum of the planet I live on. I go to various places and take pictures, and they go into exhibits for the people to watch. She pulled the curtain aside for me to leave. You're going to let me leave, just like that? I said. Of course. She smiled again. You're free to go wherever you wish. To your aunt's or back to Chicago. I was glad to get your portrait. In return, I'll send you one of the prints. And would you like one of your aunts? Actually, when she came in to have her picture taken, it was for the purpose of sending it to you. She was my first customer. I've taken a special liking to her and given her several pictures. Yes, I said, I would like one of Aunt Matilda. When I emerged from the shop, I discovered to my surprise that the train was just pulling into the depot. An urge to get far away from Sumac possessed me. I trotted to the cafe to get my bag, and when the train pulled out, I was on it. There's little more to tell. In Chicago, once again, I spent a most exasperating 2 days trying to inform the FBI, the police, or anyone who would listen to me. My fingers couldn't dial the correct phone number, and at the crucial moment each time I grew tongue-tied. My last attempt was a letter to the FBI, which I couldn't remember to mail. And when I finally did remember, I couldn't find it. Then the express package from Sumac came. With fingers that visibly trembled, I took out the 2 framed pictures, one of Aunt Matilda in the process of dusting the front room. All of her pictures that she had hidden from me were back in their places on the walls. While I watched her move about, she went into the sewing room, and there I saw a picture on the wall that looked familiar. It was of me, an opened express package at my feet. A framed picture held in my hands, and I was staring at it intently. In the picture I was holding, Aunt Matilda looked in my direction and waved, smiling in the prim way she smiles when she is contented. I understood. She had me with her now. I laid the picture down carefully and took the second one out of the box. It was not a picture at all. It was a mirror. It couldn't be anything except a mirror. And yet, suddenly, I realized it wasn't. The uncanny feeling came over me that I had transposed into the mirror and was looking out at myself. Even as I got that feeling, I shifted and was outside the mirror, looking at my image. I found that I could be in either place by a sort of mental shift, something like staring at one of the geometrical optical illusions you can find in any psychology textbook in the chapter on illusions, and seeing it become something else. It was strange at first. Then it became fun, and now as I write this, it is a normal thing. My portrait is where it should be on the medicine cabinet in the bathroom, where the mirror used to be. But I can transpose to any of the copies of my portrait anywhere. To Aunt Matilda's sewing room, or to the museum, or to Lana's private collection. The only thing is, it's almost impossible to tell when I shift or where I shift to. It just seems to happen. The reason for that is that my surroundings, no matter in what direction I look, are exactly identical with my real surroundings. My physical surroundings are duplicated exactly in all of my portraits, just as Aunt Matilda's are in the portrait of her that hangs on my study wall. She is the invariant of each of her iconic mantrams, and her surroundings are the variables that enter and leave the screen. I am the invariant in my own portraits, wherever they are. So except for the slight twist in my mind that takes place when I shift, that I have learned to recognize from practice in front of my mirror each morning, when I shave, and except for the portrait of Aunt Matilda, I would never be able to suspect what happens. If Lana had taken my picture without my knowing it, and I had never seen one of her collection of portraits, nor even heard of an iconic mantram, I would have absolutely nothing to go on to suspect the truth that I know, except for one thing. I don't quite know how to explain it, except that I must actually transfer to one of my portraits, and, transferring, I am more real than, what shall I call it, the photographic reproduction of my real surroundings. Then, sometimes the photographic reproduction, the iconic illusion that is my environment when I am in one of my portraits on me, fades just enough so that I can look out into the reality where my portrait hangs and see and even hear the watchers as ghosts in my solid reality. Quite often I can only hear them, and then they are voices out of nowhere, sometimes addressing me directly, just as often talking to one another and ignoring my presence. But when I can see them too, they appear as ghostly but sharp, clear visions that seem to be present in my solid-looking environment. There, but somewhat transparent. I have often seen and talked to Lana in this manner, in her far-off world where I am part of her private collection. In fact, I can almost always tell when I shift to my portrait in her gallery, because I am suddenly exhilarated and remain so until I shift back, or to some other portrait. This is so even when she is not there, but out on one of her many photographic expeditions. When she is there and she is watching me, and my thoughts are quiet and my mind receptive, she becomes visible. A ghost in my study, or the lab where I work, or if I'm asleep, in my dreams. Like an angel or a goddess. And we talk. Back in the physical reality, of course, no one else can hear her voice. My real body is going through its routine work almost automatically. But my mind, my consciousness, is focused into my portrait in Lana's gallery, and we are talking. And of course, in the real world, I am talking too. But my associates can't see who I'm talking to, and it would be useless to try to explain to them. So I'm getting quite a reputation as a nut, you can imagine that. But why should I mind? My reality has a much broader and more complex scope than the limited reality of my associates. I might be fired or even sent to a state hospital except for the fact that Lana foresees such problems and teaches me enough things in my field that are unknown to Earth so that my employers consider me too valuable to lose. If this story were fiction, the ending would have to be that I am in love with Lana and she with me. And there would be a nice conclusive ending where she comes back to Earth to marry me and carry me back to her world where we would live happily ever after. But the truth of the matter is that I'm not in love with Lana, nor is she with me. Sometimes I think I am her favorite portrait, but nothing more. But really, everything is so interesting. Lana's gallery where I hang, the museum where there are new faces each time I look out, and new voices when I can't see out, Aunt Matilda's sewing room, where she is at the moment, and all sumac as she goes about her normal pattern of living. It is a rich, full life that I live, shifting here and there in consciousness while my physical body goes about its necessary tasks, as often unguided as not. What a reputation I'm getting for absent-mindedness, too. And out of it all has come a perspective that, when I feel it strongly, makes me feel almost like a god. In that perspective, all my portraits, and there are many now, in many worlds and in many places on this world, blend into one. That one is the stage of my life. But not a stage, really. A show window. Yes, that's it. A show window, where the watchers pass. I live in a show window that opens out in many worlds and many places that are hidden from me by a veil that sometimes grows thin, so I can see through it. And from the other side of that veil, even when I cannot see through it, come the voices of the watchers as they pass by or pause to look at me. And I am not the only one. There are others, more and more of them, as Lana comes back on her photographic expeditions for the museum. None that I have met understand what it is about as fully as I do. Some have an insight into the true state of things, but very, very few. But that's understandable. Lana can't give the same time to them that she gives to me. There aren't that many hours in a day, and you see, I am her favorite. If I were not, she would never have permitted me to tell you all of this. so I must